And we're live again. Welcome back to Pencils and Stories. Welcome if you're new to the channel. My name is Henrike and I make and teach comics. So if you want to make your own comics as well, you're in the right place to talk about how to promote your webcomic. And I will be sharing some strategies that you can start out with if you're a complete beginner and some more advanced things. I want to share with you 3 ways you can promote your comic. The first one is like completely free promotion, stuff that you can start right now. The second is promotion when you have a little bit of an audience, because that actually makes a lot of difference. Paid strategies. You can start the paid strategies right now, but you might actually want to, you might actually want to benefit from starting out with like the free stuff and working on your comic, making sure that that is launched and everything, and making use of all the free strategies. And then when you're a little bit comfortable, dive into some paid stuff. You can also make sure that you have some money, coming out of your comic to then put back into some paid strategies that I'm going to share with you. But you can theoretically start them at any point. So, I want to quickly share with you that I have a checklist that if you're completely new to comics, you can start with the checklist that shows you exactly how to start your comic if you're kind of in kind of doubting if you really have everything you need to be able to start. Like I often get the questions like, what do I need to start? What's the bare minimum? Do I need to have like a completely written out story? Do I need all these fancy, like materials and stuff? And I make this checklist to help you get through the initial stages of starting your comic. And you can find that at pencilsandstories.com/extra. You will get the checklist immediately sent to your inbox, and also some emails that help you get started with the checklist and keep you motivated and everything. So when it comes to promoting your comic, first of all, I want to say that if you have a webcomic that you make, and obviously you're making it for your own enjoyment, but if you have a webcomic, it probably means that you want to build an audience, because that is the nature of a webcomic. You put it out there for people to read. So with that comes promotion. You can wait for people to come to you. Totally fine, but it really might help to put your comic out there and let people know it exists. And first of all, I just want to encourage you, if you have a story to tell, if you have the drive to really draw it out and make it into a comic, then, that stuff deserves to be read. You're putting in a lot of work, you're putting in a lot of effort, so don't be afraid to promote. And luckily on social media, especially in the artist space, it's very accepted that you just show off your work. People, especially people who follow you, they want to see your work. It's why they follow you. So don't be afraid to share. And when you make a webcomic, you often have a lot of material to share. So first, I want to dive into the free methods, the kind of free ways that you can promote your comic online. And you can start with this before you launch your comic. In fact, I actually advise that a launch is an event that you can really use to drive a lot of people to your comic. You can use the time before to hype it up. It's what I did with Recollection City. And, I posted it a lot on social media. I told everybody around me that I was doing this comic, that it was important to me. And, all of that hyping up, I launched my comic in July. And since January, and I cannot remember how many weeks it was like 23 weeks or something. In January, I started with a weekly kind of like image that I made. It was an image with characters of my comic, and that had on it like so and so many weeks to go. And, that really made people, every single week, they would see an image and they would see like, oh, this comic is coming closer, And my followers and my friends on Facebook and everybody was like, oh, this comic is coming. It's so exciting. So that is something, those are kinds of things you can use before your launch to kind of hype it up. And with all of the stuff I did, I shared a ton of, because I was working on my buffer before I launched. So I shared a ton of in-progress stuff, a ton of sketches, a lot of like inked panels without any color, some flat color panels, and then some finished panels. But I really I kept those as a surprise, and I launched with 5 pages. So that resulted, like all of that hype that I did before, resulted in 200 people coming to my website. New website, new comic, 200 people came to that site on that day. I wrote a blog post. I actually did a guest post, kind of like an interview kind of thing on somebody else's website. It was mostly friends and family, and that's super awesome. It really made the day very special. And I still, up to this day, have not beaten that record of how many people a day come to my website. So it's a very special day to me. So yeah, that's before you even launch, like hype it up on your social media, post a lot of stuff. And that's a second tip I want to give you. A comic will give you a lot of behind the scenes kind of stuff. If you can work in some, this is how you do it kind of posts, that would be even better, because that really attracts a lot of people, and a lot of people will love to see that and can actually learn from you. But just sharing the sketches and sharing the work in progress during the whole making of your comic, that's something that people really love to see. It gives them some insight in how you work. It gives them some behind the scenes of your comic. It might get them interested. So just consistent posting on social media is something that is actually really helpful. It will drive you up more in the algorithm. Like, you have a lot of stuff to share. So like a daily post, or even like every 2 days, or at the bare minimum, a weekly post on social media can actually help you grow your audience on social media. And from there, just put your link to your comic in your bio, or have a first like pinned tweet or something like that, or mention it like a ton in your stories to just drive these people to your comic. Even with something like webtoons that has a built-in audience, you will still need to do a lot of like bringing people to your comic, because it's just really saturated. There's a ton of people there. So that is something that you just really need to do, like mention it everywhere on your social media. And you cannot be expected to make like full-on illustrations of your characters and stuff next to your comic. So just sharing the work in progress is something that I really promote. I know some people don't necessarily like that idea, because they think sketches are something that people don't want to see, or they're afraid of the messiness of them. I know personally so many artists who just love that stuff. And people who read comics and don't necessarily draw might actually find it really fascinating to see how a comic is made. So that's a thing that I wanted to share. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, like I said, let everyone around you know that you have a comic. Whenever they will run into somebody who says like, well, I read comics in my free time, they will be like, oh, I know a person who makes a comic. And they will just, they say like, Google this person, and your comic might show up. So just tell everyone I have not many like real life artist friends. Like most of my artist friends are abroad and they're from online. So I don't necessarily have a lot of live artists around me, but people are still super interested. And, I don't know. I know that, for example, my mom just sent some of my family members, like relatives and stuff, to the site. I mean, they won't necessarily read the comic, but, it's a good indication to Google that your site is visited. And, it's really nice to have people ask you like, hey, you were doing this whole comic thing, on birthdays and stuff. So, just for your own motivation, but you never know who they might run into. So just let everybody know and let them, help you, in case you have a Kickstarter going, sometimes, can always really help. There's somebody in the chat. Verskarton. Is that a Dutch word? It's literally like, it sounds very Dutch. If you're not Dutch, then it's probably pronounced differently. But Please reveal all your webcomic secrets. I will share with you what I know, because my comic is on hiatus right now, and I'm mostly promoting. Like, I'm also speaking a lot from, promoting this YouTube channel and promoting stuff on, my Twitter and stuff. It's not just my comic, but I have researched this stuff a ton. And if I would have, if I wouldn't put in so much time in my business right now, I would actually put in a ton of time promoting my webcomic. But my webcomic for me is something that I really try not to make money with. It is my passion project. That's why I want to keep it that way. I am using it for my YouTube channel, but this is actually my business. So this is where I put a lot of my promotion. But a lot of this stuff just applies to webcomics in general. And I also experimented with some paid strategies and stuff for Recollection City that worked out. But we're going to get to that. We're still in the free, like the free stage. Yeah, if you can share the link to your comic anywhere, put it there. Put it in your bios, put it on your site. If you have like a private Facebook page, just put it in your header, so when people look you up and they cannot necessarily see your posts, they will still see your webcomic URL. You can even, just put the URL to your comic in your email signature. If you talk a lot with other artists, for example, or you talk a lot with your friends and stuff, just put your link to your comic, like put it everywhere. That's also a thing. And then another thing that's really helpful, and I did that too, but it really, it's nice if you know a lot of creators, and that's another tip I want to give you. Find the comic artist community on social. They're everywhere. They're on Facebook groups. They're very heavily on Twitter. A lot of them are on Twitter. They're on Instagram, and try to connect with people. It's like the networking thing, If you know a lot of creators, and if you actually try to have a connection with some of them, and be really visible in certain groups, encourage other artists, encourage other people and stuff, and have those connections, you can eventually do stuff like link shares. I have some links to my favorite comics on my website, but I also have a few links to just people I just know, and they're nice people, and I want others to read their comics because I know them. So if you have any artist connections, you can always reach out to them and say, hey, I've been reading your comic. I love it a ton. I'm launching my own, or I have my own comic. And you can, maybe do a share or link share. Maybe they can mention you on their blog if they have a blog below their comic. I've seen people on Webtoons even do it, like have a little drawing at the ending and like, I've been reading this comic lately and it's super good, or I've been collaborating with a friend, or this person did fan art. Fan art too is a great way to connect with artists. Like, obviously make fan art because you like it. Don't do it to connect to the artist or whatever. But if you are into fan art and you love doing fan art for other comics, definitely just make those connections. Just not necessarily to get anything out of it, but if you have certain kind of connections, then you can always see if you can help each other out, and that can go both ways. So that's a really great way too. And then just be visible and all the things like you have on Twitter, you have on Sunday. It's webcomic chat. It's just the account will tweet out some questions about comics and stuff. They will always have an introductory post where they invite you to post the URL to your comic and introduce yourself and stuff. It's really good to have a good pitch for your comic, something that is like 1, maximum 2 sentences long. Some people call it a log line, others call it an elevator pitch, like whatever you want to call it. Have something super short that just tells you what's the comic about, and then don't go into super detail with like names and concepts and stuff, because no one actually cares about that. They want to care about the emotion. What's the character struggle? Like what is the big thing that happened to them and now they need to fix, and make it something that we recognize. You could even say this is a story about, for example, for a coming of age story, this is a person who, in the midst of all the chaos in their lives, amongst like alien invasion, I don't know, just tries and find themselves. that is really trying to find yourself is something that a lot of us can connect with. So that is the stuff that makes a good elevated pitch, and not necessarily like there's an alien race from this planet that has like a very specific kind of crystal that everybody's after. Like, not too exciting, but it gets exciting when your main character is, the guardian of those crystals, and now, like a ton of those crystals are stolen, and they really need to prove that they are worthy of their job, or they want to save their country or whatever. Make it personal to the character, make the drama very apparent of like what's happening. So if you have that log line in pitch, just use it everywhere you can. If somebody says, hey, what's your comic about? You can just pitch that and people be like, whoa, that's super cool. I want to read that. What's the URL? And you can use it for those kinds of tweets. Every now and then, just throw it into your stories in Instagram, and have nice pictures, like nice artwork to go with it and stuff, and just bring people to the website. Art shares is another thing. Very popular on Twitter. Usually, like things like super detailed digital paintings and stuff is what does really well. But there's also, I see a lot of comics being posted there, and sometimes it will be specific comic art shares where you can post, like somebody will say like, what's the best page you've ever made, and then you can post your best page. And we all start from somewhere when it comes to level of artistry, but also the cool thing about webcomics, I feel, is that you will grow as an artist, and people will actually follow your growth. And, if you just keep being consistent and keep posting, keep being visible, people will eventually go, oh, I remember when your comic started out, and stuff like that. And they will, they will kind of grow up with you. It's really, really fun. So be visible. Don't be afraid to promote yourself. Look for chances. Look for chances online. Look for chances in real life even. I've been sitting in church next to a person. They were like, well, what have you been doing lately? And I'm like, I made a comic. And they were like, oh, that's so cool. And they probably never read comics. And they just asked and asked and asked about it. And then they were like, can you, can you show something? And I was like, sure, it's my website. And I just push it in your face, and now they're on my email list. I mean, that's how it can go. So don't be afraid to promote yourself and put yourself out there. So those are all kinds of like free things that you can use and build your audience. And free audience building goes slow for most people. Like, you can be, every now and then there will be a new comic that's coming out, and the artwork is just amazing, and it's a really good intro. The first page just grabs you, and those people will see some success. But it's usually like you don't get that good just for nothing. They probably have made 20,000 comics before that. We all start from somewhere. But if you just keep building and keep being persistent, then first of all, make your comic for yourself and keep building the audience. Don't expect that the audience will just flock to you, because you do need to kind of like prove yourself that you're consistent, I guess, with your comic, and like your story is good and your artwork is good and all of that stuff. And even like the most popular webcomic artists out there, I know for a fact, I'm thinking of a few of them, and I know for a fact that they've done tons of comics before, and that was before anybody really knew who they were. So just keep at it, and over the years, you can kind of grow your audience, and that is very nice, because now you've grown your audience a bit. You don't necessarily have to have a huge audience. Like, my audience is very tiny because I don't necessarily have a lot of time to do a lot of promotion for my comic. All my promotion now is going to the YouTube channel. YouTube is, by the way, a very good free strategy as well. Just show people how you make your comic. People love that stuff. YouTube is very time consuming, though, I have to say. But that's a really great way to make like your whole story, basically your own story of you making the comic, super visible. You can talk about your characters and stuff. It's just fun. So that's another thing you can do, but just be warned, it's very time consuming. But then you have a little bit of an audience, and that's when you can kind of leverage them as well. Like you can literally just ask them, like, please share the comic if you know anybody who is also into comics. Like share the comic with them. If you get fan art, just or like ask if you have drawn any of my characters, please send it over to me. You can share it on social media and stuff. That is really helpful. And if you kind of think like the audience is big enough for this, you can actually do a giveaway kind of like event. A giveaway is just one example. You can do a lot of stuff actually with your audience, kind of to connect with them, give them stuff they want, and they can help you spread the word about your comic. So, for example, you could offer them, like, you don't even have to have something physical to offer them. Like you will see those giveaways that, like, I have a tablet here, enter into my giveaway to receive a free tablet or whatever. But you can just say, like, I will draw you in the background of my comic. If they love your comic, people will go nuts over that. It's like super fun. Like I have a cameo in a comic, actually. It's just fun to see yourself in a comic, and a lot of people just really love that. Or you can make a custom drawing for them, and then you will just post out, like, share the comic on your timeline, and you can provide them with some promotional images. You can ask them to retweet a tweet or to share something in their stories and tag you and stuff. And that is how more people can get to know your comic, and they can come to your website and maybe become, a regular reader. And you don't necessarily have to put in a lot of time, cost, and effort. It's just, drawing them in your comic or drawing your character for them or something like that. Could be super fun. So definitely ask your audience sometimes. I see a lot of webcomic artists especially if you have a website. This is harder on Webtoon. But if you have a website, people sometimes even provide you with promotional images. Like if you want to have a link to my comic on your website, or if you want to, tweet me or something, this is an image that you can use, just share it around. Can be really helpful. Just at the end of your Webtoon, just have a little tiny image of yourself saying, hey, thank you so much for reading my comic. I appreciate you so much. If you know any people who might love this kind of story, I really am trying to encourage people. I don't know what your comic is about, but, if you have a really heartwarming story, or, you're trying to tell a certain kind of story from a certain kind of perspective that a lot of people might benefit from, just say, like, if you know people who are in their situation, share the comic with them. That kind of stuff. And, if people get super loyal, like actual fans, they will not find that weird. They will just be like, yes, I love this comic, I'm going to share it. I tweet a lot of comics, like in the last few years, like comics that I just really love, and I want other people to read them. And there's like people going online, like, I want to read some new comics, and I would just go in there and just dump all my favorite comics in there right there. These are the best comics. Ask your fans. They love your stuff. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming back every time, or they wouldn't follow you on social. That kind of stuff. So that's something you can do when you have a bit of an audience. Another thing, it's a little bit more advanced, but if you have grown your audience a bit, something you can do is a Kickstarter. And I don't necessarily mean I need the big funds to make this entire printed comic. You can just go for a small run of like a floppy side story, or make some stickers, do some prints. You can have small Kickstarters, but the thing about Kickstarter is, again, it's a launch, it's an event. That stuff tends to drive new people to you because people are talking about a Kickstarter. It has this great time clock on it, which means that you want to get a pin of my character, this is how you get it. And you have to back the Kickstarter, and you have to back it in 30 days. So that is a great way to get some new people who are maybe just browsing the Kickstarter platform, even though Kickstarter also, like Patreon and like Webtoon and stuff like that, they require you to bring your own audience for the most part. But if you can get kind of like attention and people are like, oh, I back this and I really want this pin, so please people back this thing, you know, they will tweet it out and they will talk about it on their social, and you know, that will kind of create a buzz around your comic as well. So Kickstarter is actually a great audience building platform. Just keep it, you know, keep in mind how big your audience is. Don't go for like, I need $2,000 if your audience is like super tiny. You know, be reasonable, do some research. But that can actually be a great thing. I actually am following a course about Kickstarter specifically for comics. I'm just going to do a shout out. I'm not sponsored, but I really, really like this platform. They have a free podcast. It's called Comics Launch, and it's comics with an X. So Comic X Launch. They have a podcast, free podcast, just people talking about kickstarting their comics on Kickstarter. But Tyler James, who is the mind behind Comics Launch, he actually has a course that takes you through the entire Kickstarter process. Shout out to Tyler. I'm doing his course right now, actually for my own course that I'm launching about comics. It's not necessarily a comic, but I'm launching my course on comics on Kickstarter. This is so meta. You know, it's launching in January, and you know, it takes you through the entire process of figuring out how big your funding goal can be, and figuring out how to make a good page and a good video and how to do your promotion and everything. So, you know, Kickstarter is a great platform for you to get some eyeballs on your comic. So if you have a little bit of an audience, just do a fun, you know, like do some stickers. I mean, I didn't kickstart this, but I just was in the mood for getting some merch for myself. And I'm not, my comic is on hiatus right now while I work on my course and while I create a buffer for my YouTube channel and stuff. But when my comic goes live again and I will do some more promotion, I definitely plan on giving away like stickers and stuff. So like super fun. I just wanted that, something I wanted, so I bought it. You know, so that's all kind of stuff you can do. You can do like, there's so much ideas that you can create, like doing events on social, you know, just doing lives where you draw your comic, having these launches, like having a Kickstarter or having a comic launch, or, you know, really hyping up a certain scene that's coming. Like, you guys are gonna love this, you know, just talk about it a lot, and be enthusiastic about your own comic. That's very important. Don't apologize for it. Like, here's my comic again, I'm sorry for spamming. Like, no, people want comics, they want entertainment. You're giving them something. So don't be afraid to promote your comic. Yeah, so let's say you have a bit of an audience. They actually are starting to ask for prints. Like, I see it sometimes. People have like really great panels and they're like, I would love a print of panel 4 of this page. That can be something that happens eventually. Or you want to make some prints, or you want to make some postcards, you know, with your characters on it. You know, maybe just start a little shop, or have some digital PDF versions of your comic on Gumroad. You know, like Patreon is something, a platform like Patreon that has like a whole membership going on, that is harder to get people to commit to than having like a one-time buy, for example. You know, so maybe just start an Etsy or Society 6 or whatever shops there are, and maybe you'll get some side income from your comic that you can then invest in some paid strategies. As mentioned before, you can just invest in it yourself. I've done that actually for Recollection City. I had some good results with Top Webcomics. And that is a place where people vote for their favorite comics. A lot of people have a link on their site, like vote for me on Top Webcomics. And if enough people vote, you will kind of go up in the rankings. And people are actually browsing Top Webcomics for, you know, discovering new comics and stuff. Just to be warned, if you go to topwebcomics.com, it's not all safe for work. It's not all PG. I just wanted to get that out there. Go there on your own discretion. But then when people have voted for your comic, and they will see ads like all over the site, but especially when they have voted for a comic, they will get to a page where the creator can actually provide them like an image, for example. That's how you can get people to vote for you, like vote to see a teaser for the next page, and then they will click, and then they will see, a work in progress or a finished panel of the next page, for example. And that is a page that has a ton of ads. And it's all kind of little squares, but that's actually like, if you have really good artwork that stands out there, if you have a nice character, you have a nice comic panel that you want to show off, you can actually hire, you can kind of like rent a space there, and you can put an ad on there. Last time I checked, and I'm not quite sure, but it was like $30 a month or something, which is like you will never get for something like Facebook ads or something. It's super cheap. But I actually saw a pretty big splurge of people coming to my website when I did that for a month just to test it out. And I actually saw a pretty big amount of people extra coming to my site. So those kinds of places. I know you had... what was it? What was it called? It was like an ad platform specifically for comics. You could actually pay to be on some pretty big comic sites. But it doesn't matter because they stopped their service. But if something like that, if you're watching this in the future and something like that ever comes up again, that can actually be a really great thing to try out. Just having ads of your comic on that site that they can then click on and immediately go to your website to start reading your comic. That can be a really great thing. Especially if you have a comic around a specific subject. For example, your comic is about mermaids. I don't know, just keep an eye out for mermaid related things, on social media. Of course, you have things like Mermaid where you just need to go all out. I think if you have an opportunity like that, but also like, I don't know, maybe there's like places where people gather who are like super fan of mermaids, or children will love mermaids. Like you have a lot of like I don't know, maybe creepy mermaid stories or something. But especially if your comic is geared towards kids, going into, that's really elaborate, but going into forums or maybe, advertising on websites that allow you to advertise that are related to mythical creatures or whatever. That can be a place where, you can look into as well, and not just, comic sites and stuff. For example, my comic is slightly steampunk. So those are like hashtags I will use on Instagram and stuff like that. So don't necessarily be limited to comic websites and comic ads and comic related Facebook groups and stuff. Also look at what your comic is about. What is the subject? So that's another tip for you. So ads on top of comics and stuff. And then like more of like the ultimate way to promote is actually getting into things like Facebook ads and Instagram ads. That's a whole science in and of itself, which is why it is an advanced thing. I personally have not used Facebook ads for a comic. I also don't see it much on my own Facebook. I will see mostly like educational things for art. Every now and then on Instagram, for example, I will see an artist page. I see that more on Instagram. I haven't seen it on Facebook yet. It's mostly like art courses and stuff. But yeah, that's something you can try out if you have the money. You can choose to invest the money you get from your comic, for example, back into the promotion of your comic. Maybe give people on Facebook a free, the first chapter of your comic can be a free download for them. And then, in that PDF, you send them, to the website, or they might be intrigued by the first chapter and they go to your website on their own, but definitely put your link in there. But that can be something, to get them off of Facebook to your comic website. But that's an advanced thing. There's a lot of tutorials, a lot of videos. There's even courses on Facebook ads that you can take. because they do need some practice. You do need to know what audiences on Facebook to target. If you go too broad, you'll probably spend a lot of money and you won't necessarily see returns. But if you can really find, if your comic is for kids, or if your comic is specifically for teenagers interested in Transformers, I don't know, just something like that. If you can really, really target stuff, you can find audiences that are related to the things in your comic or to comics, then that could be really great to try out. So those are the paid strategies, which is obviously it can. They always say like the free stuff and the free audience building goes slow. You can get a really loyal audience that way. With paid strategies, usually your growth goes a little faster. Then also there's more risk involved because you're putting money towards those things. But if you want to, if one of your goals for your comic is to build the biggest audience possible, then that might definitely be something that you can figure out. Obviously, always invest in, making your comic the best as possible. Let, also the art and story speak for itself. But I'm not a very big fan of like build it and they will come, or just have really good artwork and they will come. It helps, but people still need to know it exists. And that is where promotion plays a very big part. If you want an audience, if you want to put your comic out there to be read, if you want to put your comic out there because you want to make a name for yourself in comics world and maybe even, collaborate with really great artists that you admire, you need to put yourself out there. You need to promote. You need to promote your comic. So be visible, share what you can, what you want to as well. Have some form of consistency online. If you have some money coming in from it, maybe invest it back in your comic if you can spare the money. Of course, safety and, keeping yourself afloat and stuff obviously goes first. But yeah, an experiment, especially things like events and stuff. And of course, every single page, you're doing oftentimes you're doing a weekly page, or, you have what I'm trying out now, or at least I was before I paused my comic, but when I will restart my comic again, I am experimenting with launching more pages at the same time, but having more time in between them. I really want to see what that does, because then I can create some buzz around the update. Because what I found when I was updating weekly is that a weekly page is just, another week has passed. Here's another page, and here's another page, and here's another page. And your loyal readers, obviously, they will come back. They will come back every week. They are waiting for the page every week. But also, I had such a good experience with my comic launch and building up that hype that I really want to try that again in my comic and really build up towards, here's another 5 pages, and in a month, and here's another 5 pages. So you can have a bigger chunk of story, but also you have some time to create the hype. But in essentially what you're doing when you have like a weekly comic page is you have a weekly mini launch. That's what it is. So try and find ways online to actually make it exciting and get people to your website or to your Webtoons page or anything like that. So that's what I wanted to share about promotion, about audience building. I think the most important part is having that confidence, no shame, promote, see the chances online, see where you can share your comic. Don't go into somebody else's threat and just start self-promoting. But when you have a chance, when you're invited to share without shame, and share it on your own page as much as you want. It's your timeline, it's your profile. Just go for it. That's what I wanted to leave you with. Share your comic. It's something that's dear to your heart, and it's meant to be shared with the world. If you chose to do that, so do it. And don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel ashamed. Be excited about your own comic. There's nothing more enticing than a creator who's just gushing over their characters. At least for me, I just love that. I love to see that. So, be excited about your story, be excited about stuff, and just post like, I'm so excited for this new scene that's coming up. Like, it's gonna be great. Just hype up your own comic as much as possible. That's what I wanted to leave you with for this week. Again, if you are new to comics, I have a checklist that you can check out, where I take you through the whole start of your comic, coming up with the idea, the story, making the template page that you're going to use, and then how to make a page. It is a free PDF that you can get at pencilsandstories.com/extra, and the link is also in the description. So you're invited to go check that out and start your comic today. If you want to know more about the course that I was talking about on Kickstarter, it's launching in January. It's coming up. It's getting closer. You can go to howtostartacomic.com, which is the title of my course, How to Start a Comic, and I will take you through the entire pre-production process. When you're through with the course, not a comic, both things with a C. When you're through with the course, you will have everything you need in order to start your comic. You don't have to doubt about anything. You will have a log line, you will have a story, you will have a template page you can use again and again. You've made shortcuts, you have everything organized. You're ready to start making your pages, which is like a slight crash course on how to make comic pages as well in that course. So I'm going to launch the Kickstarter in January if you want to be part of the Kickstarter, because it will have a special pilot price. Definitely make sure that you're on the list. I have a notification list on howtostartacomic.com. Definitely be on there to be notified so you don't miss out on the Kickstarter. That's all I wanted to say today. No problem. Interstellar. So hi to Sujal. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you all so much for joining live. It means a lot to me. You're awesome. I really hope it was helpful to you. If you ever have any questions about audience building, please leave a comment below, and I'll try to respond. YouTube is not super great at notifying me of every single comment, but I try my best to check in and see if there's any questions. So if you have any, just dump them in the comments. And for now, I want to thank you so much for watching. Tune in again next week, next Thursday, and go and make some comics, guys. Have a great day.